Welcome back. So South Africa's referral of Israel to the International Court of Justice on the grounds that the country is contravening the Genocide Convention adopted by the United Nations steps up diplomatic pressure for an end in the war in Gaza. Global efforts to end the war in the Middle East have yielded very little, with reports of deaths continuing to escalate. So how will this action by South Africa shape events and what impacts, negative or positive, will come out of this? But also, more importantly, what does this mean for the brand that is South Africa and how the country is viewed on a global scale? To answer that particular question, we're joined by Mr. Tshepo Matseba, who is with Reputation First. Tshepo, a good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we can certainly speak about the geopolitical conversations that are happening where Gaza and Israel certainly is a big talking point. So you can even go back to how South Africa continued to attempt to play a pivotal role between Ukraine and Russia. But in this particular move, where South Africa has filed this suit with the International Court of Justice, your initial thoughts upon hearing that, about what this says about how the world views South Africa?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think globally, citizens, leaders, business leaders, investors are actually sympathetic, and they take empathy with the people of Palestine. And as a result, they definitely are in support of South Africa. Obviously, in that context, there are countries that have taken a posture in support of Israel for decades and years, and therefore they would be in a position to only take a stance that says that this is a mistake and that this would be costly. And those countries include countries such as the United States. But overall, when you look at global sentiment, when you look at Asia, you look at Europe, you look at Africa, even though there will be differences, but generally speaking, people are actually empathetic and very sympathetic to the cause. And therefore, South Africa is therefore perceived in a positive light. The effort is seen in a positive light, especially given our history as a peace resolution first nation, given our history when we reconciled under very difficult circumstances post-apartheid.
I don't know if you were able to see the submission that South Africa essentially made to the International Court of Justice, a very detailed 84-page document. And I immediately, when I saw it, thought this was something that it seems South Africa had, and this is of course my assumption, one could think that South Africa had been working on for quite a long time, considering the amount of detail that had been put into this document. Do you think that this is something that South Africa could have been thinking about for a lengthy period of time, being the first country to approach the International Court of Justice?
Look, the matter is an exhausted one. I mean, the difficulties that are faced by the people of Gaza have been going on for a while. And so it wouldn't necessarily be a position that is completely new. I think South Africa has been articulating itself, especially during 2023, in detail through the Department of International Relations, DERCO. And so one would expect that this has been coming for a while. But also, you may have noticed that South Africa has taken a posture that shows that it participates proactively in global politics, and that you've seen when South Africa worked with other African countries to go and really negotiate a peace settlement between Ukraine and Russia. And you are seeing that right now with the labeling of this specific activity as genocide. And that just says that South Africa has taken a position that over a period of time, as a country, we are not going to be tolerating issues of genocide and global wars that are actually impacting innocent people more than anything else.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, though, while we have taken this moral high ground, we do have bilateral agreements that are in place and have a massive impact on our economic activities and, of course, how South Africans see themselves, particularly when we start talking about, the energy shortages and the many challenges that we face within the country. So do you think that positive view that you talk about can and should be seen in the same, positive light by South Africans inside of the country?
Look, I mean, there's no substitute for life, isn't it? And the value of life, and this specific position and stance taken by the country should be welcomed overall. But of course, we know that in a democratic environment, you are going to have different views. Also important is to note that, while there are risks that some countries and some investors may take a different approach, and that South Africa is taking that risk, but that risk is calculated because actually the country in this specific context is not saying that we should stop trading with our partners, we should stop relations with our partners, but they're simply saying, but this specific incident and activities that have wiped 22,000 people since it started in Gaza is actually genocide. And to an extent, in that direction, I think there's empathy and understanding. Unfortunately, the reality, though, is that, of course, there are people who may actually feel different. Will they leave the country? Will investors stop investing in South Africa? I doubt, because, in an investment environment, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. It is not as if the one party is benefiting without the other. So a country, for example, such as the United States, is unlikely to disinvest in South Africa. We've just actually reinforced and renewed the efforts of AGOA. And therefore, that already tells you that the intention for South Africa to continue trading with the US and others will always be there. It will continue. But it may actually rattle political feathers. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for a country.
Yeah, very interesting. Interesting take there. So in your view, and you could have 10 seconds for this, a strengthened brand South Africa in 2024 as a result of this move to approach the ICJ.
Oh, yes, and that's because, global instability is bad for everyone. And the wars that you are seeing around the world would be bad for everyone. And so the posture that the country has taken, the headlines we're occupying worldwide are positive. Here and there, you pick up comments about the risk to investment, but overall, very positive indeed.
All right. Well, we're going to continue that discussion around South Africa's filed suit to the International Court of Justice, where it has, of course, accused Israel of genocide. And we're expecting public hearings to be taking place on the 11th of 12th. That's Thursday and Friday. But thank you so much to our guest, Tshepo Matseba, who is with Reputation First, speaking to us about brand South Africa and what this move means for how the country is seen globally.